Phoenix, where we take an unabridged look at the sports world with the latest from the Valley and around the country. We discuss the Suns, Cardinals, Sun Devils, Yotes, and D-backs with the best guests from local print, talk, and digital media. Find Jeff Rich live from Phoenix on CentralCityRadio.com and the Central City Radio app. Hello and welcome in for another edition of Jeff Rich live from Phoenix. This is a presentation of Central City Radio. We're here in the CentralCityRadio.com studios. This evening I have a guest, man I haven't talked to in a long time, but we picked it up and it's just the same like it was 10 minutes ago. It's Paul Richardson from the Sports Cave and just a general good guy here.
Hey, appreciate that. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a while.
It has. Well, we used to shoot the shit in the Diamondbacks press box, and it's us like us Midwesterners, complete strangers. 4 innings later, we're talking like, wow, we go back since we were knee high to ducks.
That's the best part about being from that part of the country.
Yeah,
it doesn't take long. Yeah. It doesn't take long. It's not like the West Coast because neighbors live next door to each other back there, not 5 doors down and do everything in the backyard.
Well, what I notice here is the cinder block walls, the garage doors closed. You don't have that neighborhood thing like going on, and that's how I became acquainted with our man on the other side of the glass here. Shout out Julian Allison, Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh, right on. So
it was just the same when we became acquainted, and obviously we're working together, so
that's cool.
We hit it off pretty well. So I'm going to talk about a few things tonight. College football, Sun Devils were off. U of A was in action, and they were showcased because they were on a Friday night football game, which is kind of where you put your throwaway games in college football, especially when you put them on at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. But Pac-12 after dark, it doesn't have to be Saturday night, and they had that thing in the bag. And Jed Fish was going to get his first win as the head coach. And Washington showed they just aren't as bad as they showed that they could be in the first half. U of A was running the ball. They were doing really well, and then they throw a late interception. They're up 9, and it all falls apart from there.
They snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Now, as a ASU alum, I am a fan of the Pac-11, and so that defeat didn't hurt my feelings at all. In fact, it gave me even more laughable material.
See, I figure I'm a little new and not an alumni of ASU, though I love going to the games. I've had a couple of the tailgaters on this very program, and my thing is if it's from Arizona, it's good to go. So it's NAU. It's Cody Bellinger's Chandler Little League back in 2003. I want it to happen because that's how I latch on to this community, and I think that it's a little bit my civic responsibility. I kind of came into all 5 teams here into town, and I'm going to count the Sun Devils basketball football program all as one. But the Diamondbacks won the World Series 6 weeks after I got here. The Phoenix Suns, they were the first professional team in town, and they have they're grandfathered into certain things, especially with the natives here in town. I just happened to become good friends with the Zamboni man for the Yotes from 96 to 04. Cool. So I got on it that way. My wife's a big hockey fan, so she likes going to the games. Wish it wasn't as long of a drive as it is for us living east of Central. But and then who's left? The Arizona Cardinals.
Right.
The Arizona Cardinals had to get a new house.
Yes.
When they lived in that old neighborhood, it's a great college football venue and it's a great atmosphere, but they were not drawing dick at that stadium, and the games were blacked out, so you couldn't even watch the games at home unless you would sit on the 105-degree bleachers.
And they were losing on top of it, so you definitely weren't getting games because they weren't selling enough tickets. Because I like how they sold the tickets. Like if you were on one side of the stadium, it was like $50 cheaper than the other because of the sun setting and cooking you in the middle of the afternoon. But no, that is well, actually what's funny is now the stadium is remodeled. If it had to in an emergency, it could host a pro team because there are real seats there now, not just benches all over the place.
I was at a professional game there as recently as 2018 to watch the Hot Shots. I was really kind of bummed that whole thing didn't work out. and all of these offshoot leagues. I don't remember really caring too much about the XFL 1.0 back in 2001.
Yeah.
But when it came back, and you had the AF for a year, and then you had the XFL, and it was doing okay right up until the pandemic hit, and it just shut down not high revenue sports. So
see, here's the thing, though. I think our society has changed a lot because I'm old enough to remember the USFL, and the good thing about the USFL is they didn't have to compete with the same money contracts that the NFL did, so they could pay named players to play there. That's how you got the Herschel Walkers and the Jim Kellys and Bobby Hebert. They were all able to go there because they could afford them. Well, now there's no way an upstart league is going to be able to afford to lure named players over. And if you don't have a named quarterback, you can give it up. I don't care how well someone's playing in the league. Nobody knows the third string quarterback from University of New Mexico, Central Southwest.
Of course.
Nobody gives a crap, so nobody's watching the games because there's no name recognition. So honestly, I think all those leagues are gonna really just struggle, to be honest with you.
I agree with that. I will say that there have been good stories that have come out of that league just as recently as Thursday night. No secret here. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan.
Right.
Dernis Johnson from USF.
Yes.
He had stopped playing football. He went pro in something other than sports. He was actually out a fishing boat off of Florida there, and he went on social media, DM'd every team in the Alliance of American Football, and he got a call back from the Orlando Apollos, and that's how he ends up in the AAF for its abbreviated period. But he's been with the Cleveland Browns for a couple of years now.
Right.
He got significant playing time when Nick Chubb went down against the Cowboys in 2020, 13 carries for 95 yards. He plays on a team, unfortunately, that features Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, so it's difficult for him to get on the field. But when he got his opportunity, I've gotten to that age where I stop looking at these young men as my peers and start looking at them as if I would have had children, they'd be my children's age. So now I see them very differently. It makes it hard for me to root against any student athletes.
Right.
We'll sit on the visitor side at Sun Devil Stadium for the first couple games of the year, and we'll see Kent State and New Mexico State run out there, and I'm like, I could be the typical Sun Devil fan, throw the pitchfork in their face, but I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at children, man, and I'm 43 now, so I'm just kind of hitting that age where I could have children that age. I don't have any children at all. Well, I'm the child representation in the household. My wife gets to be a wife and a mother of sorts, a den mother of sorts, I'll say.
That's funny.
So Dick Clark was the world's oldest living teenager,
yes.
And I'm not going for a teenager. I'm going for like 26.
There you go.
So I'm just trying to be the world's oldest 26.
That means you can still go to a bachelor party and have fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely. So what do you think of the Sun Devils? They seem to be okay as long as they don't have to set foot in the state of Utah.
Okay, so here's my thing. Someone said something to me about the Sun Devils a while ago, in all honesty, and I fought it tooth and nail. But now I'm starting to revisit that, and that is the Sun Devils, like the Pac-12, are a reactionary institution with everything. And by that I mean any time they have, I'm tired of hearing basically they have 10-win talent but win 8 games. I'm tired of hearing there are 13, there are 13 penalties, we have to clean that up, and then 2 weeks later you have 13 penalties. You haven't cleaned that up. So I think there comes a point where we have to almost, and believe me, as alum, this hurts, but I almost have to start to realize I'm at one of those football schools in a major conference that anything 8 wins and up, I just have to take as a plus, because we don't recruit enough top athletes consistently enough for top athletes to consistently come here. So, and I know that sounded kind of long about, but we'll hit a class, and then 3 years later that class will the fruits of that labor, but then they leave, and then the people that replace them, they're not that same class. So it's like you get up to 10, and you fall back to 8-7. Then you get back to 10, you fall back to 8-7.
I find that to be true in the in the Hog Valley conversation. In the interior, nobody wants to come out here and sweat, doing 2-a-days in 125-degree It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but when you consider putting all the equipment on and gearing up.
But they're in a bubble.
Right.
They practice in a bubble. And I just, there's certain schools that make that turn, and there are certain schools that don't. Clemson made that hard turn, 10, 12 years ago, and they were able to piece everything together. This school that I love is going to actually probably be on probation at the end of the year. So any good works that they have coming up to it will probably now fall back again because they're not powerful enough for you to want to come here if they're on probation. So it's the Paula Abdul school. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So, and it's almost like you have to, I hate to say accept that, but until they do something consistently enough, they got to prove to me that they can do that. And they haven't. We've gone through Cooper. I'm going way back. Then we went to Graham. We went through.
Well, you just lost Cooper. Cooper did the 2 things on that one day in 1987 that he didn't do in 14 years in Columbus, and that was beat Michigan.
Yeah.
He did win a Rose Bowl, which
he did.
We don't
but
have
he
to
lost
talk
to the school in Tucson before that. So it's I don't know. Like I said, I think there are some schools that will. SC is as much as people want to not admit it. Oregon is great. Oregon has a good program they put together, and they're consistently competing. But have you ever noticed? When SC was winning, when they were on that run with Pete Carroll, they could lose a game and get to the final, get to the BCS game. Oregon loses one game, they're out because they don't have the sweat equity built up that SC has, and we almost have to start saying, "Wow, it's amazing," but we need SC to be good because when SC is good, they technically bring the conference with them. When they're bad, even our best isn't good enough. And it's kind of sad, but I blame a lot of that on our old commissioner. I blame the fact that we're not on DirecTV on our old commissioner. A lot of that has to do with, and I'm sorry to be long-winded, but we as a conference, they took a lot of my money, so I can say we. They decide, the SEC decides, we're going to go and steal from everybody. Now, the Pac-12, instead of saying, you know what, it's time for us to do some stealing of our own. Kansas, K-State, BYU. Hey, come over here. We're about to form a super conference. They decide they'll form an alliance. They won't steal from this person if you don't steal from.
Well, they've let the Big 12 show ASU, not ASU's, but the Pac-12's ass. Time and time again, going back to the Pac-10. I mean, that deal that they were supposed to do, they had the Pac-10.
Yes.
They were supposed to add Texas Tech, Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, and Colorado was the 6th team. And then they when they lost A&M to the SEC, they're like, all right, no problem, we're going to get Utah. And out of that whole mess, they end up with Utah and Colorado. And I think that Utah's answered the call of moving from the mid to the high major, much like TCU has as well. But Boise State hasn't made that jump. BYU tried to go independent, thinking that they'd make that jump that way, and it blew up in their face. I mean, I think they ended up with a soft landing playing basketball with Gonzaga in the WCC. But as far as the whole football thing has gone, I think that it's gone really poorly, and I think that they should try to get back into the Mountain West. But they were bailed out by the Big 12 if this thing actually comes to fruition. Because we've heard these deals, in concept, but we haven't really seen anything finalized.
Why would you give a crap about Kansas basketball? You don't go get Kansas Kansas football. You don't give a crap about Kansas football. You get Kansas for Kansas basketball. You know what Kansas basketball would do for the Pac-12? And you bring that natural rival with K-State with you, and you go and you get, you just do things that big boys do, and the Pac-12 never does it. And that's why the SEC can have 2 teams. Big Ten, Ohio State will always be there. Because let's be honest, Big Ten changed their rules last year for Ohio State. Ohio State carries the water for the Big Ten when it comes to football. And I'm tired of Michigan. I really am. And I don't know if this will be music to your ears, but Michigan pisses me off. If you look back over the history of Michigan, they're a 9-10 win team, and every so whenever they have a year where the stars align and they compete for a national title. Every other year they don't. It's Ohio State. It's their conference. And when people say, I can't believe they changed the rules for Ohio State, I can't believe they wouldn't. Why would you not change the rules to put your bell cow in front to make the rest of the team's money? That's asinine. Michigan is not.
Wouldn't the Pac-12 do it for USC?
Yes.
Wouldn't the SEC do it for Alabama?
Yes. Ohio State owns Michigan. Period. Let's just be done with this whole, Michigan competes. No, they don't compete with Ohio State. And they haven't for a long, long time. So get out of here with that nonsense.
Right now, Michigan feels like they have the upper hand because they beat Washington, who almost lost to U of A the other night. Arizona the other night.
See,
and Ohio State lost to Oregon.
Okay.
I mean, that's not an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah, Ohio State carries that conference. But what I love about the Big Ten is they don't make bones about it. They're not trying to hide that. The SEC is not trying to hide Alabama. But the Pac-12, they want to hide everybody. We're the Conference of Champions. Yeah. Go out and bring in somebody. Stop being reactionary. Be proactive.
All right, let's react a little bit to 7-0, the Arizona Cardinals.
Wow.
Not much of an opponent on Sunday, but you got to beat who's in front of you. Game got off to a really rough start. You try to run Edmonds up the middle from the shadow of your old goalpost, and Kyler gets caught hanging onto the ball. And they didn't tackle him legally, but they certainly tackled him before the ball crossed the plane of the goal line, and they go down 2-0 early in this game. And the rest of the game, there's plenty to say good things about the Cardinals, but shaky little start. Maybe looking ahead to the Packers a little bit with the short week coming up, and big win against the Browns on the road a week ago. So I thought that I don't expect the Cardinals to go out there and win 55-0 every week.
Right.
And they wouldn't, because Cliff would call off the Dogs, unlike what's his name up there in New England.
Oh, he definitely didn't call off the Dogs today. He did not.
He didn't like the Jets.
No, and you know what? When you have I can't believe I'm going to stick up for him a little bit. When you have a struggling team and they finally are breaking out, the last thing you want to do is pull them back. You got to let them go ahead and keep breaking out. So I'm not sticking up for Belichick, but in that case, I kind of understand why you let him play.
All right, you're a Chicago man. Chicago Bears took on Tom Brady. They got a win against them Monday Night Football a year ago, but not the story today. It was just kind of over before it started.
Matt Nagy last year was shielded because Adam Gase was the worst coach in the NFL. Adam Gase isn't in the NFL anymore. So Matt Nagy can carry that logo all by himself. When you come out with the rookie quarterback and you're playing Tampa, and Tom isn't first off, Tom isn't losing to the Bears twice. So that was already a foregone conclusion. But as bad as the Bears technically should be, their point spread wasn't even as bad as the Cardinals over the Texans. But he comes out and there are 5 wides on a couple of different sets, and it's like, you just basically told Tampa, disguise what you want on defense. We're not going to run this ball. We're going to put this guy in a rookie quarterback in the back. I don't get it. The success you've had with him, you've come out in 12 personnel. You've lined up. You've blocked. I understand you're cutting off half the field, but you're giving him an opportunity to learn how to read defenses. I don't know. Honestly, this wasn't a laser-called game. And us Chicagoans, we know when Laser's calling games, and we know when Nagy's calling games. This was not a laser-called game. You don't put a rookie quarterback with 5 outs and have to make him process all that against that Tampa Bay defense. It was just asinine from the start.
That sounds like I'm locking in on Allen Robinson if I'm Justin Fields.
Yeah, or Mooney. And you lock in on those two, and they're not even on the same side where one could split off where you could have a read. They're opposite, so he's not having a chance with that rush to progress to the other side. There was one play where he had Cole Kmet open, but he looked right instead of looking left first, which I don't know the play call if it was determined he should look right. But by the time he looked back left, there's a defender in his face. So even if you say, well, he has to learn to read his progressions, there was no time. So I honestly, this almost sounds crazy. I want the Bears to win, but not enough where they think Nagy developed enough to keep him around. if that makes sense.
See, I thought they'd hold off for that very reason. They'd hold off on moving over to to Fields, because if he starts Fields the last 6 games of the season and rolls with Dalton, but Dalton fucks it up by getting hurt.
Right.
If he goes with Fields late and shows signs of life late in the season,
he'd save his job.
Right. But I think that there's pressure from the front office there to get get on the field, get Chicago Bears fans excited about their quarterback, because you lived in the area. If they do this move to Arlington Heights, it'll be no different than the Cardinals moving to Glendale, except that the Bears already have that fan base. And I'm sorry, the people coming in from Indiana and the south end of town, they have to go out to the northwest suburbs, but it's an extra 45 minutes 8 times a year to see your Chicago Bears. It's going to be a transparent.
Yeah, as much as I like them more on the lakefront, they need to get out of that spaceship they call a stadium. And Arlington Heights can do a real stadium. My only hope is that it's open air. We're not dome people, so I'm hoping they go that route. But
and let me tell you something though. Chicago has the hotel rooms. You dome that stadium, you get Final Fours, you get Super Bowls.
Okay, let me ask you this question, and I'll answer this. Do you like basketball games in domes?
Not at all. Not even a little bit.
It's terrible. It is god awful terrible. Your shot perception is off. You're not even watching the game on the floor. You're watching the game on monitors. So I understand the money purpose, but I just had to ask you that. But Nagy is just a bad coach. He's a bad play caller. The Bears are one of the worst teams. They're either 31 or 32 in offense proficiency, and points scored. And he's the offensive guru. Maybe I'm missing something.
I think he might be burning some bridges for the enemy right now. Just because you look at the model, it doesn't guarantee success. Peterson, he won a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
But he was not a good head coach. And they thought that the way that he handled Week 17 last year was not
terrible.
Not becoming of a NFL head coach. There's only 32 of these jobs. You got to act the part.
Yeah, Nagy's just not good. And another reason that they played Fields and they're not going to get off of him. Unlike if he pulled this and going with Dalton's my number one. Dalton, everything goes through me. That whole nonsense. If this team was in Nashville, it'd work. Chicago's a different beast. You have a new young quarterback, and you have old, Andy Dalton. That city swell is going to make you break. It's going to break you inevitably. And no one in Chicago right now, and it's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine that covers sports in Chicago, no one's blaming Justin Fields. Even though he should get some of the blame, no one's blaming him because they see the play calls. And as much as Mitch Trubisky should not have been drafted number 2, as we know that he's not great, Nagy did the same thing with him. He doesn't call plays that work for his quarterbacks. He calls plays that in his mind he knows should work, and those quarterbacks better figure out and make it work. That's not a good coach. Saban was all. Do you remember when Saban had like big defensive linemen and linebackers were bigger, and then he played Clemson, and Deshaun Watson ate his butt up with the quickness. And all of a sudden, those linemen have a little bit more speed, a little bit more agile. There's quarterbacks, a little bit more speed, a little bit more agile. He changed. That's what a good coach does. He says, I'm reading the pulse in the room. Okay, the wind is blowing this way. Now, I can't keep doing what I was doing because I'm Nick Saban. I've got to change a little bit. I got to do things differently. That's why he still wins. Nagy doesn't do that. It's my system works. If you just run my system, it'll work. I don't care if you can't run my system. Run it. It'll work. It doesn't work. He's got to go.
It's a round peg, square hole situation. Yeah. I think that Mitchell ended up in a good situation in Buffalo. I think that if he's ever called into service, that other than Cleveland going from Mayfield to Keenum, I think that, among the playoff contending teams,
Yeah.
I think that is one where the gap is not going to be that great. And Allen's fantastic, and Mitchell is not Josh Allen, but as far as just kind of bridging the gap between
couple games if you need him, he'll be fine.
So, I don't think I think Case Keenum could go out there with the Browns and beat Pittsburgh, but I don't think that he could go out there the rest of the season and turn a 4-3 team into a 13-4 team.
Agree.
And I'm not sure that Mayfield's that guy either, and that's a topic for another time, but I do have to mention this because we're coming off talking about the Bears. We're technically a local show right here. I had your old buddy from 1060, Alex Clancy, in that seat 5 days ago, and I asked him where the first Cardinals loss comes from. He says it's the game at Chicago because it's a trap game for the Cardinals. Do you see that?
Okay, so when the season started and we picked all the games, I picked them losing that game. But not because I think the Bears are that much better, and obviously they're not. Now, who knows what the weather's going to be like that day? And if it's a Chicago weather day, I still think the Cardinals could lose because Kyler Murray has a great arm. But Kyler Murray hasn't thrown when you throw a football and you're throwing it right and the wind takes it all the way to the left side of the field in snow. So I want to see that. I mean, you're a Cleveland Brown fan. Mm-hmm. You know there are times where, depending on who you play, temperature starts to drop, it starts to snow. You start actually cheering because it's now snowing, and you know that other team is going to struggle.
Well, they're an outdoor team. They play all of their conference games outdoor in potentially cold weather situations. So this is a team that's built around their offensive line. They have a serviceable, but they have a guy like Phil Simms as their quarterback. Mm-hmm. Great game manager. Never mentioned the game manager conversation. I think that's what Baker Mayfield is. You give him great weapons at running back. You go out and sign Jack Conklin. You use your first round pick on Jedrick Wills. You're able to trade for Wyatt Teller, J.C. Treader, longtime veteran in the league. You commit to the running game, and you stock up on tight ends between Njoku, Hooper, and Harrison Bryant there. So you do all the things that you need to do to run the ball. You had a couple of big names at wide receiver, and they're letting you down, and suddenly your quarterback's a bust because Odell Beckham Jr. Has never been the same player for Cleveland that he was with the Giants. Yeah. And since that injury, he's just not a top tier player anymore. Yeah. And that's a sad fact because he's this great big brand. He's this great big personality. But it doesn't translate to success on the field. And it's not me pissing all over Odell Beckham Jr. It's just that's not that's not the heart and soul of the Cleveland Browns anymore. Right. That's the team that the Bears need to be. But David Montgomery didn't really supplement what Jordan Howard. I mean, they haven't had a great back in Chicago since Matt Forte.
Well, and Nagy doesn't want to run the ball. That hurts a lot because that's why he got rid of Jordan Howard because. Think about it. The year before Nagy got there, Jordan Howard was a Pro Bowler. Nagy gets there, his carries go down in half because he doesn't fit his style. So, I mean, everything you look at what happened with the Bears, all the movement, it points back to one person. And it's easy. But the Cardinals, I don't know where the Cardinals will lose their first game because
I don't think they're going to sweep the Rams. That's just my opinion. I don't think they're going to go 17-0, and I haven't really combed through the schedule to figure out where it is. But
it may be Thursday. Who knows?
It could be.
It could be. This team defensively, let's say they're a little off. Offensively, if you're not playing in a cold weather place, well, you got a double Hopkins. Now they got Zach Ertz. You got. There's weapons everywhere. It's like, and if you go, okay, fine, we'll play them straight up man to man. Now you just turned your back on Kyler Murray, and you look up and he's 15 yards. I mean, offensively,
it's like playing 12 on 11.
It is. Yeah. Offensively, honestly, I was thinking about this the other day. Is there an offense? Because I know what Tampa Bay has, but they don't have that running threat with Tom, obviously. But he's Tom Brady, so we put him in a box over here. Is there another team that's that dangerous on offense? In all honesty, I mean, is there a team that you really can't do anything with?
Baltimore's a tough opposition, But with their running back injury problems, I mean they're six deep. They got Le'Veon Bell, who they signed the day before the season started.
But wide receivers, they don't have the same receivers as the Cardinals.
No, they have a lot of run away from you receivers that prevent you from bringing an extra guy against Lamar. And a lot of credit to Greg Roman for putting that offense together there. I really think that the quarterback is if you have that quarterback that could take off on you, that's just impossible to defend.
Yep.
So I think that the Cardinals are in really good shape. And there are other teams that don't that play that drop back quarterback type of offense. Justin Herbert still does it. I think it would behoove Jacksonville to do it with Trevor Lawrence, even though he's got some wheels underneath him. Hey, we've been talking a lot about Chicago with Paul Richardson here. Let's move it from football, which is right around the quarter point in the season, to baseball, which is right at the end. But before we get to the World Series, let me first ask you, are you a Cubs or a White Sox guy coming from?
I hate the Cubs with everything in me. I am a diehard White Sox fan.
Okay.
I am that person that says I love everything in Chicago except the Cubs, which is true. And if you tell me you're a White Sox fan, this happened. When the White Sox, when the Cubs won the World Series in 2016, 15, whatever, I had a couple buddies that I saw on social media with Cubs stuff on. And first thing I did was, hey, thought you were a Sox fan. Oh, but it's Chicago. Dude, never wear White Sox stuff around me again. Once you put on that Cubs stuff, you're no longer a White Sox fan. So I'm that much of a White Sox guy.
Well, I was actually the victim of that Cubs World Series, being a Cleveland guy, but I am married to a Chicago girl and a Cubs fan at that. But it wasn't the Cubs that dominated the Central Division this year. It was the White Sox on the American League side. I'm going to tell you, I remain skeptical. I've been skeptical about the TLR hire. Tony La Russa just seems, again, I think I used it earlier, round peg, square hole, especially with the personality, the Luis Roberts, the Tim Anderson's that leader of that team, and I think that the only reason that La Russa hasn't been run out of town just yet is because he stayed out of Tim's way.
I didn't like the hire. And the first, I want to say 20 games, Tony made some just mistakes, bad mistakes, not knowing the extra inning rules, not knowing certain different things that threw the Sox.
Yeah, didn't he have his pitcher run when he didn't have to?
Yeah, he was just completely off. As the year went on, and then the whole deal with Mercedes, when you don't, in my opinion, you don't call out your own player publicly. I think you do that behind closed doors. And there was legitimate riff between the players and him. But he worked that out. So I don't think the White Sox lost because of him, but I don't think they would have gone any further because of him. White Sox pitching just wasn't enough. The White Sox really just need another front line pitcher. And before I put it all on them, look, the Astros are just good. I mean, there's sometimes you can say, "Oh, we didn't do this," and then sometimes those guys in the other clubhouse, they're just better. They're a better hitting team from 1 through 9, and they were a better pitching team, especially in that series, all the way through. Lance Lynn, people act like Lance Lynn was he got rocked. Lance Lynn got rocked earlier in the year by the Astros. The Astros beat the White Sox. They swept them in Houston earlier. And this wasn't like it was this vacuum thing. They proved all year they were better than that team. Maybe the White Sox were better than the Red Sox, but they weren't better than the Astros. They played the Astros. So I'm interested, to see what the White Sox do next year. That hire is not a GM hire. That is an owner hire.
Oh, getting Carter Hawkins, the assistant GM from Cleveland for like the last 5 years, he's going to go over it.
Yeah, that has nothing to do. Look, the old man said he wants Tony La Russa. I don't care what.
Oh, wait, Carter Hawkins was Cubs. Never mind.
Yeah, no, we have Rick Hahn.
That's right.
Hahn could say, I want Tony gone. Whatever. He's not leaving. That is an owner's hire. So when Tony leaves, it's going to be because he wants to leave. So the players understand that. They're playing through, but honestly, until they get another frontline pitcher and they figure out what to do with the bullpen, because why does his name just escape me? The guy that does the hawk before he pitches. Kimbrel was lights out pitching in the ninth inning. Kimbrel was hittable in the eighth. Mentally, he wasn't the same guy. So until they get that worked out, they'll. I know you're probably an Indians fan. I don't think the Indians are going to be good for at least a couple more years.
The Indians ain't doing shit because they're the Guardians now.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. The White Sox should win that division. I mean, in all honesty, with the talent they have,
there's no contest. It was a no contest in 2021. Yeah. I can't imagine unless Detroit gets crazy, like they bump up your man from ASU, Torkelson, and they try to do some special things, because Detroit went on a couple runs this year. I got a buddy from Toledo that kept asking me, he's like, Detroit making the playoffs. I was like, you don't watch baseball enough.
Yeah, or the Twins. The Twins are always a thorn. Like, something happens with them every 3 years where they find magic in a bottle. But for the most part, they should win that division. But are you better than that? The Astros, honestly, were good last year. I mean, if we're really being honest, they've been good, and they've lost people. Springer is gone, and they're going on like he's not even, like they don't even miss him. So they got to get better than that team.
Do you think that they were the best team in the American League this year, despite what the records say?
The Astros?
Yeah.
Yes.
How about on the National League side? I mean, you had two great teams in the NL West here, but they got to beat up on the Diamondbacks and the Rockies 19 times each. So that that contributes to winning a close to 100 game. But 106, 107, that's you got to do some of it on your own too.
I think the Dodgers, honestly, they had injuries at the wrong time, obviously, and them and the Giants were really basically, when they played each other, the same team. That one run separating them all year.
10-9 in the regular season. Yeah. So everything the team that won 110 was going to go on.
Exactly. So they were even. Baseball though, Jeff. Sometimes the Braves are just doing everything right now. So are they the better team right now? Obviously they are. It wasn't like a 4-3 bottom of the nine error that one. They beat them 4-2. So they're right now they're a better team. But I think the Astros have been good. I'm one of the people that understand they cheated, and I understand all the stuff that went along with it. But what got me was the Yankees cheated with those Apple Watches. The Red Sox cheated too. And if I can name you 3 publicly that I know cheated, I know there's probably a bunch of other ones that are out there doing the same thing. And I don't want to sound like Jessica Mendoza, but I always have a problem when people cheat and win, then go somewhere else, get cheated against, and then complain that they're being cheated against. It's like, then give back your ring first, and then, not saying that I'm saying it's okay, but I've always had a problem with that. It's like, wait a second, dude, you were cheating too, and now you want to say that? Come on.
It's part of my shtick. I like piling on the Astros because I got no stake there. I got absolutely nothing to lose. But
you got to like Dusty from interviewing him. He's like one of the greatest guys.
See, Dusty and Brantley are there, and I keep thinking that if we could have had Brantley at the right time, because he has been an absolute stud for the Houston Astros since he got there, and when he was healthy on the field in Cleveland, he was great there too. He made the CC Sabathia trade worth all the while for all the time that he gave us in Cleveland. So I just wanted to ask you about that, and let's bring it back to a local level here. You have former Diamondbacks #1 overall pick Dansby Swanson made the final out of the NLCS, and then on the other side you have former Diamondbacks ace back from the time we worked together. You have a former Diamondbacks ace who was a mercenary when he was the Diamondbacks, and they moved him to Houston, and he stayed there ever since. So it's a little taste of the Diamondbacks. I don't know if that entices D-backs fans to watch. I think most of them were just hoping anything but the Dodgers and then anything but the Giants.
I think it's almost sad, but I think Diamondback fans stopped watching baseball in May. to be honest with you, I mean, what's frustrating though is not just those guys. Think back when the Nationals won the World Series, you were watching a bunch of Diamondbacks
plus Rizzo.
That now when you're watching, when you start watching these other teams, when you watch the Cardinals and in the playoffs and Goldies, I mean, so sometimes when you
that one angers me. That's a foundation piece that should not retire, and it should have retired in Arizona.
You're 100% correct. But it's hard when you look at teams and There's all these guys. Or my favorite one ever though is Martinez with the Red Sox. When the year after he was gone, I heard someone on radio say, "We need a Martinez like that." You had him. Wait, no, not Martinez. JD. Help me out.
JD Martinez?
JD Martinez, yeah.
The guy who hits 4 home runs for the Diamondbacks in a game. That was just an absolute stud.
You let him go, and then you say, we need a guy like that. You had a guy like that. See, though, the biggest problem I have with the Diamondbacks is you are not a mid-market team. Stop acting like you're a mid-market team. And on that Zoom call at the end of the year, it was the most frustrating call ever when you're listening to the GM talk about basically this team's going to be bad for a couple years. Without saying that, he said that. That's a tough pill to swallow. Look, it's one thing to be bad when everyone's bad, but with the Suns winning, the Cardinals winning, the Mercury winning, and even though I'm on ASU, they'll go to a bowl game. They're in the city. GCU's basketball is doing well.
And give it up for Bryce Drew.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody thought when Dan Marley was gone that program was going to go into oblivion.
And it only went up. You're the only team in town losing, and you basically are tapping out for next year too. Look, let's be honest. Diamondbacks tapped out this year. You bring back the same hitting coach and the same dudes that couldn't hit last year. What was supposed to change? Were they supposed to all of a sudden hit for the person, his style, that couldn't give them the hit? So this team was set up to fail before I felt, honestly, there was a time in the year I said they should mercy fire Torrey. Why make him go through all this crap? Torrey's a good guy. And then they re-upped him, and I started thinking, well, hell, you're right when what you said earlier. There's only 32 of these jobs in the NFL. Yeah, there's only 30 of these jobs, but it's not a good job. So if you get Torrey to re-up and stay and go through a learning process, maybe you got the right guy with the right temperament to stick it through. But the Diamondbacks, in terms of a manager's job, of course, is a good job. In terms of other baseball teams, it's a bad job right now.
I would have hired Torrey if Tito would have stepped down with the Cleveland Indians. I mean, not that it's my decision to make.
Right.
I like, and especially for the situation that Cleveland's entering right now, they might have Jose Ramirez on their roster on opening day. They've still got Shane Bieber. They could do something special with Savali or Zach Plesac there. The future's wide open, but it's quite uncertain at the same time. And I thought that Torrey's a good leader of young men. He's got that same attitude that Tito does. That I'm not going to micromanage you, but you will respect what I tell you.
Right.
So World Series, Braves, Houston
Astros
in 5.
Astros in 5. They're just good.
That's an unfortunate thing. I feel bad that here's the thing is that they were caught red-handed and they were unpunished and don't be bad at them. I mean, you get into a fight at school and you got kids. You get into a fight at school and you do it behind the building and nobody sees you and you don't go say, "Hey, Mr. Principal, you need to suspend me."
I was the one doing it. I started throwing things. No, it's not only that. Honestly, I really like Dusty, and all the time that we've done Diamondback games for forever.
Yeah.
Out of all the visiting managers, Dusty and Ozzie Guillen have been my favorite two. Ozzie because he just says whatever. I mean, Ozzie's just a whole different person, but Dusty is just a nice person, and his stories are incredible. So because of Dusty, I would say I'm more pulling for the Astros because I really want to see Dusty
Dusty's been the victim a few times. I can remember my first ASU game was 2003.
Yeah.
They're playing Washington. Andrew Walter just beat Oregon up in Eugene. So a lot of excitement around the Sun Devils around that time. And we go to this game. This is my first ASU game, so I'm kind of getting introduced to the process. And back then, you had all those bars that weren't condos. So we end up at Bandersnatch at halftime, and it's Game 6 of the Giants and the Angels in the World Series.
Yeah.
And I watched that fall apart for the Giants.
Yep.
so that's and that's really strike one. A year later, Dusty's in the dugout for the Bartman game at Wrigley, and I'm not saying that they would have held on against Florida or that they would have beaten the Yankees in the World Series, but that's a single moment that's frozen in time that really isn't on the manager. I see the smile on your face. You're like the Joker grinning ear to ear there. That was the most fun 7-run inning that you've ever watched in Chicago.
Moises Alou lost his mind. Like literally, he mentally.
See, this is where I put that situation. And I know that we're talking about something that happened 18 years ago, but here's what I put on Dusty. Is that you have a young kid in Pryor that's never had this moment there before. You've got an all-star Gold Glover, if I believe, in Alex Gonzalez at shortstop.
Yes.
After that whole incident, I'd bring all eight players on defense into the mound and say, let's take a deep breath, let's settle down. And he let Pryor cook out there.
Well, and see, and that's why too, partly because just like players learning to get better. I think Dusty has learned, and he's better. And like I said, this is a personal rule. And we look. People always say, "Oh, well, you cover sports, you should be, right down the middle. You should be Switzerland." That's been a joke of mine forever.
You got to have a little agenda. You got to have a little slant.
Plus, you're human, and we meet so many people and interview so many people and form relationships. You root for people. I mean. It's and then there are guys, pardon my language, that are just assholes, and deep down you're like, dude, I hope they just have miss that free throw because you're a jerk, dude. Like and you're a jerk, and you revel in being a jerk.
I feel that way about Kelly Olynyk. I felt that way about Steve Nash for a long time, but I had kind of a soft spot for the U of A because Kenny Lofton played point guard, and then he ended up being like every kid my age's favorite baseball player.
Okay.
So I think that we rooted for David Stoudemire when he got there as well, but I don't remember my point really. I got to defending. You're liking the U of A guys, and I completely forgot where I was going. Let's talk. Tell you two U of A guys that I will love forever is Richard Jefferson and his buddy Channing Frye. The whole road tripping podcast. You didn't even have to be a Cavaliers fan. It was just a lot of fun with two goofy guys. Both played for the Suns at one point too, and both have Phoenix high school roots.
They did the opening game. And we saw him down in the media room, and actually, I was joking, Richard Jefferson. I don't know if you saw it, but on Instagram, he did a TikTok. There's a girl that has 2 million followers, and she just dances. And he saw her outside of Staples, and he TikToked her showing him how to dance. And so he's coming out of the Al McCoy, and I was talking to Dwayne Rankin from the AZ Republic, and I'm like, yo, Dwayne, Richard Jefferson's a dancer. And he's like, you saw the TikTok. I was like, yeah, I saw that. That's why he goes, I was sitting there going, should I tick? Should I talk? Should I TikTok? So, but it was cool. I mean, it was just fun. And he's a funny guy. He really is just a funny guy. Yeah. So there are guys that went to that school in Tucson. See, I'm not going to say their name like you did. That school in Tucson that I like. But the institution itself, I have no use for it.
I have not had a good time down there. I've gone down to that state. I actually saw a high school championship game there that one year. Lutheran Academy, 27th Avenue at Southern. I couldn't even tell you what team from the other part of the state that they were playing, but we were just driving down there going to see my parents in Tombstone one day. And we stopped, and it was $4 to get into this high school game. We'd never seen a game in that stadium at that point. And we watched this game, and we watched it go into overtime and come down to a 2-point conversion at the end.
Cool. That's cool.
And the Lutheran Academy, ended up failing to achieve victory in that game. But it was more fun than we watched them beat ASU one day. Back in like 2009 or something like that, and then
don't remember any of the losses.
No,
I don't remember any of the losses. I only remember the wins. I remember 70-7.
Oh yeah,
I remember that one.
I was up in Vegas. I was up in Vegas. We're trying to get away from the whole pandemic, and two really disappointing games against the LA teams, especially the USC game to open the year. To open the year in November. Yeah. I'm kind of glad to be back to normal, going to the Sun Devils games. We got Washington State and then USC coming up over the next couple of weeks here. So
SC's homecoming.
That's interesting.
SC is homecoming.
See, I'd look at that if I'm SC as disrespectful, but I'm talking from a high school football perspective. I think that the college at the college level, it's a higher level.
Yep.
You get over that kind of crap. But hey, let's talk about the fun part of the Valley. Let's talk about the defending Western Conference champions. Should be NBA champions, but man, nobody's ever played a finals in July before.
Okay, so I honestly think the Suns lost that series when Dario got hurt. I don't think Dario is a world beater. I'm not, out there trying to sell him as a future Hall of Famer.
Better than Frank Kaminsky.
But you lost and you know what? Honestly, when Frank was called on, he actually played well, but you just didn't have the size anymore. And I think the Suns went and addressed that by bringing in JaVale McGee. So you addressed the size deficiency that you had. Also, even though they lost the game last night in Portland, the one thing that they didn't have last year was a backup to the backup at point guard. So Cam Payne was out last night, but Elfrid Payton filled in just fine. So when you look at this team, see, I've broken this down. Jeff, let me just. I've broken this down probably about 20 ways. 20 ways. I put the Suns up against every single Western Conference team in the playoffs. There's not one team, the way they're constructed today, that I think could beat the Suns in a 7-game series. Not one. The Lakers are old. And Russell Westbrook, honestly, I don't think that's going to work. Just personal opinion. Denver, they get their point guard back.
When do the Lakers hire Scotty Brooks? Because that's the only way that it's worked for him.
Well, you got to. Okay, remember LeBron said he wanted to be off the ball? Well, he brings the ball up 90% of the time. Russell Westbrook does not shoot well enough to play off ball. It's not an insult. He's a Hall of Famer. Yeah, triple doubles for 3 years, 4 years in a row. But he doesn't shoot well enough to catch and shoot. And if you make him play off the ball, you essentially turn him into half of his game being catching and shooting, or catching and attacking. Well, if he attack, you could pack the middle. The Lakers' other deficiency is they don't have any three-point shooters. Caruso's gone. Caldwell Pope is gone. All their three-point shooters are gone. Denver, their second-best player doesn't come back until almost the playoffs. Kawhi's out. And Utah, they have no scorers. If you take away Donovan.
So Whiteside wasn't the answer. Rudy Gay wasn't the answer there.
No. By you laughing, you know that. They just. And I don't think there is a team in the West that can beat them in 7 games. I think night in, night out, any team can beat any team. Catch a team. The Portland's not 20 points better than the Lakers. They caught them on a back-to-back. They left a game that they really wanted to smack the Lakers around, got on a plane, went to Portland and lost.
You don't think Golden State can get healthy and make a move at the trade deadline?
No. Who are they going to trade? Because if you bring in someone, you're not bringing another shooter, because your hope is that when Clay comes back, he fills that role. So now you have Steph, Clay, Wiggins is a wing defender, Draymond doing Draymond things, Wiseman gets better, Jordan Poole comes off the bench. You think you have enough with what you have. The one thing they don't have is size.
See, I wouldn't have gone with Kuminga. I wouldn't have gone that young.
Really?
I would have taken a senior. But, it depends on what's out there.
But see, I don't think it really would matter with them, because their whole thing is they know their nucleus, and Jordan Poole and Damian Lee have developed in that system. They're not a young guy play now team. They did it last year because they had no choice.
They're still in that situation with Wiseman.
Yeah, they are, but at least
Wiggins hasn't grown up at all. He got drafted 7 years ago.
I'll tell you what, though, the other night against the Lakers and the other night against the game when Steph lost his mind, Wiggins played very well defensive wing. And if you can get him out there being a defensive wing, you'll get those points, because when Steph was shooting from the locker room the other night, so he's the more. You remember back in the day, and I'll show my age on this one. Dr. J dunks the ball, the stadium loses his mind, and all the momentum goes to Philly, and it was always a dunk that got everybody going. Steph hits one of those logo threes, and you just see the other team for the most part like, I hope he's not. Like, you could see that face just say, I hope he's not on one of those rolls.
I went through it 3 out of 4 Junes in a row with the Cavaliers. See, I made a conversion. I made a conversion before, when the Suns won the lottery. I said, you know what? I haven't gotten the package. You know, if LeBron James is not on this Cavaliers team, I'm not going to be able to watch them unless I get League Pass.
Right.
So I do Sunday Ticket, I do MLB.TV, but in the wintertime, I figure if I move somewhere else to get away from the Phoenix Summers, I'll still watch the the Cleveland team play on the MLB app, and I'll always be a Cleveland Browns fan. But the Cavaliers were kind of expendable with me, and when they got the no, I didn't know whether they were taking Luka or they were taking Ayton. I don't know if Trae Young was in the conversation. Probably not at that point.
No, it was just Ayton and Luka.
But it was like, all right, this is the time to get in on the Suns.
Yeah.
I knew Devin Booker. I knew what Devin Booker was.
Yeah.
But he needed help, and the Chris Paul signing, and that's kind of my big fear with the Suns is because Sarver won't pay Ayton. And everything is shaping up towards everybody falling off the books in 2 years, and Chris Paul retires, and you don't believe that Ayton can be the same player, and you don't think that what you have in Booker is enough, and they'll trade him away. So I'm kind of worried about the end of days coming again.
They're fine, and they'll get Ayton signed this summer, and I honestly believe that.
Is he a max player or not, though?
Yeah, well, yes, and he'll get it. I think you have to do things in a certain way, and I'm not saying Ayton is this person at all, but you got to kind of look at his. See, people look at numbers, and these young analytic kids, all they do is look at numbers. They don't look at the game. He was a walking double-double as a rookie, but he didn't always play well. He could shoot enough and rebound enough. That doesn't make you play well. That makes you talented to play through your deficiencies. And Igor was just not the coach for him.
Would he have been if they would have drafted Luka for Igor?
No. And here's why. You know what? And I love this argument with a couple guys that are Luka guys. The Suns would be Dallas. They would have 2 good wing players and nobody else because they would have maxed Devin, and then it would eventually have to max Luka, and they'd have no more money. And Devin wouldn't be Devin because Luka is such a usage whore that it takes away from everybody else. Because we're so enamored with Luka, we really don't be honest. They're running the same offense James Harden ran in Houston, where his usage rate was high and he did everything. Luka's doing the same thing. We said in Houston it's not winning basketball. How of a sudden is Dallas any different? If you look at that Dallas roster, Tim Hardaway Jr. is a player. You're coming with Finney Smith and Klyba and all. Those players aren't winning playoff series. Like, let's just be honest. So I like what they're doing with Ayton in that, you know what you got as a rookie. Then last year you got a suspension 2 years ago you got a suspension before the bubble. Then he closed strong. And then last year he closed strong. This year he's going to put a whole season together. He's going to walk in that office with that handout, and he's going to get all of his money. And I don't think he's leaving. Everyone says, well, he's going to leave. Phoenix can pay him more than anybody else.
Can Chris Paul play the LeBron role that LeBron did for Tristan Thompson and guys like Anderson Varejao and say, hey, you got to pay this guy to keep me happy?
I don't think he needs to. I think they're going to pay him at the end of the year. Plain and simple. If he leaves, he loses literally about, I think it's like $38 million. Nobody's walking away from $38 million. No, nobody. If you go back and look at and let me phrase this, if he does, he'll be the first person. No rookie has ever left after their rookie deal. No high-priced rookie has left after their rookie deal. Porzingis knew he wanted to leave, so what did he do? He made sure he was traded in time for him to still get his rookie up in Dallas. These guys aren't dumb.
Well, Shaq left, but that was a different time.
Yeah, but they didn't have the same rookie contracts. Because remember, they weren't structured and rookies could still make as much as they wanted to. So now they have rookie deals. You make your money on your second deal. Because rookie, I'm making it sound like $12 million is not a lot of money. But he's going to literally go, look what Devin did. Devin went way up to like $29, $30 million. He's not giving that money up. You'd be a fool to give that money up. So you come back. and you do your thing. He had the Suns. Listen, look at the way the Suns. The person to watch out for leaving is Cam Johnson, because
I'm a big fan.
Big fan, but they can't pay everybody. They just paid Mikal.
Big fan of him too.
Just paid Mikal. I don't know if a lot of people didn't notice, and a lot of people aren't paying attention. They paid Landry Shamet with that extra money they had. So you've got him under contract, which is he's a great. Listen, people in the Valley can learn that kid can shoot. You got Abdul Nader that defensively can do what Cam does, and you got Shamet that can offensively do what Cam does, and together they'll be cheaper. Do you remember when they let Kelly Oubre go? And a lot of people are like, "Oh, you can't let Kelly Oubre go."
Hey, he rode the horse. He wore the Valley.
Hey, look,
right?
You had Mikal and Cam for a total of $9 million together and Mikal's better than Kelly Oubre. You had them together for $9 million. Kelly wanted $22 million. Let me see. Let me put my hat on. I could keep Mikal, who's going to be better than Kelly, and I can keep Cam, who's getting better, and I can have them both for $9 million. Or I can sign this one guy for $22 million that wants to drive down the lane all the time, clog up the middle for Aiden. Let me see. James Jones knew what was happening. My problem is Cam Johnson is going to need to get paid. He can't afford them all. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he was traded by the trade deadline, to be honest with you.
All right. We talk about the Sun Devils being on the doorstep of scandal. Robert Sarver being accused of, if the Suns sucked, everybody would, exclaim the story. They put it out there. They'd say, let's get to, Sarver has to sell the team. Earl Watson, I'm sure you've been around. You were around when he was there. He had a strained relationship with this front office, and you could tell on the way out the door. So, the legitimacy of these reports and worst case scenario for the Suns on the other side of this.
You know what? And I'm careful the way I say this because I never want to indict somebody without proof. But nowadays, you're not surprised either way, if that makes sense. And I think also you just have to. Everyone is ready to jump and pounce. I know when the story came out, like anybody else here in the Valley, we ran it on our show, put it on our social media, and when the Suns emailed out their response, we put that out too, and just with things like thoughts. I am very uncomfortable giving something until we really know, and I think it's real easy to jump on people. What I don't like to do is pile on someone, and I've said before that I think Sarver's done the best job as an owner by hiring James Jones and getting out the way and letting James do his job. For the first time, he's not meddling.
Robert Sarver couldn't be Colangelo.
No. But if it's true, it's disappointing. I guess that's the best way to say it. But I think we have to just kind of wait a second and see. But then, look, we saw what just happened with Gruden. And if Gruden is sending those emails to the Washington football team and they're accepting them and not saying anything back that's like, yo, man, chill out. They're just as guilty as the person sending the email. So I want to see this shake out. I think it's a bad time because it's a distraction that the team doesn't need, especially when they're flying high. But it's kind of amazing that they come out, and I don't know, I don't like checking the pulse of Twitter because there's a lot of clowns on Twitter, if we're really just being honest. But the pulse of Twitter was really, okay, just tell us something we don't know. And that's kind of bad because, Jeff, we've known a lot of people, and there are people where something can come out bad, and 80% of people go, no, not him. Say it's not true about this guy.
Yeah.
But when it came out, the overwhelming was like, well, did you not believe? I mean, did you? So it makes me more anxious to wait and
because the initial reception doesn't matter. It's the facts that matter down the road.
Don't ever let a good story get in the way of facts. And we know that from being married. You could be factually right, but if your wife says something, sometimes you just got to swallow those facts.
I was wrong.
But in real life, facts mean everything.
Yeah.
So, I think this team though is grown up enough, especially with Chris Paul, especially with Devin Booker, to say, hey, we can't do anything about that. But if to
and Chris Paul's had to go through this.
Yeah, and but I will say this. Let me rephrase this. When you make a billionaire sell something that's more profitable, as much as it pains them to sell their team, were they really punished? So
I think it's an ego thing. I think it's a big status thing.
Right. Like, you're giving up something that you really, that you own. But if you're the Wells Fargo CEO was fired when he did a whole bunch of shady crap. Mm-hmm. He was fined, if I'm not mistaken, $30 million. His parachute was $140 million. So after the $30 million fine, his parachute was $110 million. The guy that was working over at the Wells Fargo branch, making $16 an hour, when he was fired, he was just looking for a job. So was the CEO really punished? When Sterling had to sell the Clippers, as much as he did not want to sell his team, he had $2 billion. When was the last time you got fired from a job and you leave with that much more money than Son sold for $400 million when Sarver bought him? He'll sell his team for $2 billion.
Yep.
As much as you go, oh man, I feel bad he lost his team, he netted $1.6 billion. Okay. So it's that's why sometimes when it's funny,
but it's a separation.
It is.
It's a separation.
But look, would $1.6 billion make you feel better about a separation?
No.
No.
I have a different philosophy with earned money versus awarded money. Yeah. So I'm a little bit different in that.
Hey, you know what? That when I check that balance, it don't say earned or gifted.
I get you.
So, and I'm not saying that it should, because when you work for something and you earn it and you get it, like I tell my kids, it's different when you earn something than when you get But if your punishment is giving up a team that you don't want to, but in that punishment, I'm still going to throw $1 billion at you. It's hard for me then.
But how deep are the coffers, while owning the team? I know that some of these things can be reported as losses, and they fudge the books all the time.
I love when they say losses. I just would be interested in a punishment other than selling. If he's guilty, I would not want the punishment to be selling.
What's appropriate then?
I don't know. That's the whole thing. I don't know. To me, you're being punished by losing something, but you're being rewarded at the end. Most of the guys that sell their team,
a forfeiture of the organization.
Well, listen, you know what's funny? This isn't like the Rooneys or the McCaskies. They're not passing this on to the family. Sarver's not a young man. If you're up in age, it's not like you're passing the CEO-ship on. It's probably going to be somewhere else anyway. So if you're a kid in that family, you're probably like, dang, Dad, I'm sorry. I hate you lost the team. But when you kick it, we got $1.6 billion more in the bank. So I just think, I don't know what to do. Maybe you really can't suspend an owner because they're away, but they're not away. They're still there. I don't know.
I think you do the Suns a huge favor by suspending him and just letting James Jones, handle the day. I don't know anything about the business side. I only know the basketball side of the Suns. So maybe the Servers do a fantastic job on the business side of the non-basketball related stuff. But when they meddle, that's when there's problems.
The best thing he did was stop.
You see what the Haslams in Cleveland.
Yeah, well, he stopped.
Finally got out of the way.
And Cleveland let the football people do it.
Andrew Barry and Paul DePodesta run that team.
Sarver got out the way. James Jones is doing a great job. But this story is sad. Honestly, I think I don't care who it is. It could be Sarver. It could be Sterling. It could be anybody. When stories like this come out, I just think it's sad. To be honest with you, even with Gruden, I think it's come on, dude. Be a grown up. You have more. Look, when you send an email with your name on it, you can't cry it wasn't you. You sent it with your name on it. So
he's done. He's complete. Ray Rice has a better chance of working his way back into the media than John Gruden.
Yeah, he's done.
All right, that's Paul Richardson, Sports Cave. Tell people how to find you.
I am on the thing that I say there's a lot of trolls on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the Sports Cave. Cave is with the K. The website is sportscave.com. Again, Cave is with the K. I am on Twitter, PLR on Sports, and I don't just talk sports. So if you get your feelings hurt easy, I may not be the fuckers. I will tell you about you. And then I'm on every day, Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock. Just go to sportscave.com, hit the listen live button. There we are.
Thank you, my brother. This has been Jeff Rich live from Phoenix. This is Central City Radio. Another shout out to Julian on the other side of the glass. Thanks to my guest, Paul Richardson. Have a good night, everybody.
My man, appreciate you. Appreciate you.
This is the Valley's News Talk and Podcasts. Talk Central Phoenix, a Central City radio station.
Advertising your business with GC.